larger context, space in general. There's something up there that is supposed to teach us.
The moon plays a vital role. There is no one thumb rule. In fact, Jupiter can be very negative.
For example,
A lot of things, diseases, blood sugar and hormonal problems, liver-related issues, financial issues can come from Jupiter.
first time ever hearing this. Welcome to another Rajarshi Nandy podcast of TRS. I don't need to tell you much about my all-time favorite guest. We've recorded countless episodes with him at this point. All I wish to say before you slip into the episode is that post the episode, if you want even more of Rajarshi Nandy, we've collaborated on our mind performance app called Level Supermind. He's created multiple series where he'll carry out guided meditations based on different deities. You'll be able to find those on Level Supermind. So make sure you download it. The link is given down below. As for this episode, it's a continuation of our last conversation where we began to talk about the Kamakhya temple as well as the rise of Bhairavs all over India. This episode touches upon multiple topics, but the specialty of this particular episode and the remaining episodes of this series is that we've really used our in-studio screen. So my personal suggestion is that you consume the video version of this podcast as much as you can. Even if you're consuming it on audio platforms, these particular podcasts will be absorbed better by your heart if you view the video version of it. But for now, I have to let you slip into another epic with Rajarshi Nandy, who's back talking about the deity Dattatreya and a lot more on this special episode of TRS. You know, in the last episode, I asked you about how you're able to use such gripping language. And then you said that you're able to just see words and construct. I have the same angle with questions. I see a question in my head and I ask. Rarely do I see a question in my head and I don't let it out. Which is why I'll move on to the next topic right now.
Okay.
And this is something I've wanted to speak to you for a very long time.
Right.
I just spoke about how my childhood's deity was Hanumanji. As is the case with countless,
Other people.
yeah, at least North Indian Hindus.
Right.
I think every
Everybody.
guy in his childhood has had a Hanumanji phase at least.
Right.
Girl also. Now, from my mom's side, her dad, his mom, her dad, his mom, and it goes back. So my maternal lineage, effectively, have worshipped a deity called Dattatreya.
Okay.
I believe people only know about Dattatreya in Maharashtra and Gujarat. And even now, after years of my Hanumanji worship and Shivji worship, and even a year after my Bhairav sadhana, where I'm chanting upon Om Bhairavaya Namah every day. That's my mala mantra. But if I'm ever in tension, my first instinct is Om Namo Dattaya. Because it's so hardwired in my head. All I have been told in my childhood is that it's a combination of Vishnu and Shiva. I have been told that it's one of those avatars which is both an avatar of Vishnu and of Shiva. That's all I know. And it has the energy which is a representation of the combination of the two energies. And that I can vouch for because I've felt it. Because I've chanted upon Om Namo Dattaya. I've meditated upon it since my childhood. I've had so many experiences of going to that temples. And you feel that combination of Vishnu and Shiva energy. Which is distinct for Hindus who have visited Vishnu temples like Krishna temples or Ram temples and Shiva temples. It's different energies. But in Datta Mandirs, you feel both together. That's all I know. And I know it takes me to some deep place when I meditate upon it. Can't say more than any words that I've already expressed in front of you. I know that you've linked it to Bhairav in one of your online explanations, but I'm going to tear down this explanation with you. I want to know everything. Because I would argue that, I mean, I don't like admitting this publicly, but I'm curious to know if Dattatreya is a deity that is becoming dormant or that is waking up out of dormancy. So, over to you.
Can you search for something here? Trishiro Bhairava.
Trishira Bhairava.
Three-headed Bhairava. Okay. This was one of the Bhairavas who was very popular in Kashmir. Extremely potent worship. 3 heads. Now look at this image.
Almost like a twin of Dattatreya.
Only thing is that the heads, if you look carefully, on the left hand side, the head, it's more grotesque kind of fearful head.
On the
left hand side, right? You see that?
His right.
On his right. On his right. And here, I think it's the hands, arms are broken in this sculpture. So he'll have a skull in his hand. Okay. So Trishira Bhairava was one of the forms of Bhairava, very prominent and worshipped in Kashmir. As I say, Kashmir was the peak Bhairava Upasana place, and it produced tremendous amount of great scholars and saints and mystics and powerful acharyas. All somehow the other linked to Bhairava's blessing. Trishira Bhairava eventually, in my opinion, becomes Dattatreya later on. Okay, with some modifications. Modification kya hota hai? That the fearful head changes into the more Somya form. The skull changes from his hand because that gives him the more raw. The Bhairava energy remains very strong in that. Okay, so you remove it with Vishnu's energy. Okay, now this change is also because the deity allowed it. Do not think that somebody one day wakes up and suddenly changes and will respond. No, somehow or the other the deity allowed it, and that is why it has happened. Okay, so Bhagavan Dattatreya has some similarities in this. Is what I'm talking to you is my opinion about it.
Sure.
So it is not necessarily based on text or anything. Bhagavan Dattatreya has a lot of similarities with Bhairava. One is that he's believed, for example, that he's immortal. Okay, immortal fundamentally, but he's immortal at the same time. There is in Maharashtra, the Datta worship is quite common. Some of the texts are there. Some of the texts mention that in certain times of the day he is present at different places of India. Okay,
Dattatreya.
So he travels around India and he's at different times, it's at different places. Girinar mountains in Gujarat area is his abode, but he can travel in the blink of an eye. He can take any form and shape. He's Bhagavan almost. Okay, but he is immortal also, which means that his physicality is there. Now, when we are worshipping Bhairava, one of the first things I had mentioned and I tell people is that he responds fast compared to other devatas. So Bhairava is somewhere close to the physical plane. This is precisely what it means when we say that Dattatreya is immortal, which means he's very close to the physical plane. He will respond faster. Okay. Number one. Number two is that because of the Vishnu element that is there in Dattatreya, and we have a story of Dattatreya's birth from Rishi Atre and all that, and he's one of the brothers of Rishi Durvasa, Dattatreya and all that. But these three heads are also the three gunas. So he is somebody who can handle all these Raja, Sattva, Tama, all the three gunas he can handle, and he becomes Trigunatita, beyond the three gunas. Okay, he is fundamentally an Avadut. Avadut is somebody who has gone beyond all niyamas and dharmas. All dharma, adharma ke bhi bahar pahunch gaya jo hai. That is an Avadut. And he is immortal. He's a god basically. He's not a human being who has become immortal. He is of divine birth and he is the physical manifestation of Parabrahma. Okay. Worship of Dattatreya is very popular in the Nath Sampradayas. Apart from the worship that happens in say Maharashtra, the local in the families or etc. that happens, the Nath yogis worship Dattatreya a lot, specifically those in Western India. So they somehow or the other consider him to be the Adinath or the originator of the path. There is a famous Dattatreya Mala mantra, by the way, which is extremely potent. I won't mention it here. It's a long Mala mantra, means a mantra that's actually, that some technical criteria is there, but it's more or less, Mala mantras are always very long mantras, not small, very long. It could be 3-4 lines mantra. And inside it is contained a lot of his potencies and powers and his execution, what he does. Dattatreya has whole tantras dedicated to him.
So my mother is a Dattatreya Bhakt.
Okay.
And when we were kids, if me and my sister were very hyperactive at night, you know how there's lullabies? So my mom would sing us a Datta lullaby, which goes Jai Yogishwar Datta Daya. And that's the first line that I remember. And it goes into a long paragraph. And I know the tune of it, but I don't know the exact words. But I remember as a kid when she would sing it, because of course she was also singing from a place of bhakti, both of us kids would go into a bit of a trance and we would go to sleep in that trance. I'm using the word trance for a lack of a better word. It just triggered a memory.
So he is Yogeshwara and he responds fast, in my opinion. And without too much of complicated paddhatis, with certain degree of some amount of mantra and some amount of bhakti, if you club it together and you have genuine shraddha on him, some blessings can come from him. He's also worshipped as one of the gurus, eternal gurus. Okay, just like Bhairava is a guru of the tantric path, Dattatreya is also, Bhagavan Dattatreya is also considered as a guru. Okay, so these are his primary aspects. But when it comes to, if your question was, the second part was whether there's an awakening of Datta mantra, I don't know about that. I have no idea. I don't see anything more than what was already there, or any substantial dip also is not there. It's definitely not the way that Bhairava mantra has picked up. The energy of Bhagavan Dattatreya is almost similar to Bhairava, but slightly, Bhairav Baba ka to bahut sara roop hai. So which form you're taking, say Kal Bhairav and all that is more aggressive form, more intense form. So this is the transformation that, so it is there in here, the fact that he holds a shank, and there is a part of Vishnu also, the Vaishnava Tilak. So Vaishnava Tilak means basically it's fit for a more domestication of the original fierce nature of the deity has happened.
Wow. Domestication of the fierce nature of the deity.
Yes, domestication is a process that happens in all tantras also, by the way. When that has happened, I mean, I feel that when I read that, at the very old texts, absolutely raw. Okay, this has to be done. So the processes were curbed down and things like that, and a system of anukalpas came in. That's a kind of domestication of the anukalpa means substitute. So like I was explaining in that, the Dakshinachara method of worship. So you don't use, mantra paddhati is all same, Dakshinachara. Kriyas are all same. Only thing is that you do not use, for example, you will not offer karan or alcohol to the deity. Instead, it could be something else. It could be water, that is rose water or something like that. That's a substitute, anukalpa. So these are, for lack of better words, or this, I may not be the right word, but sort of a domestication of the very fierce energy happens, so that it's easy to connect for people at the home level.
Okay. A deity is present in outer space.
We have, think about this in our rituals. If you see a few rituals, you'll see that one of the key things that happens is the Dikpala Puja, the 10 directional deities. Dikpal, direction east, west, like this full, all of them are there. Koi bhi puja ho, anybody, Ganpati Homa, from Ganpati Homa to Bhairav Puja, traditionally when you're doing Dikpal Puja has to be done a little bit. If you take a spacecraft and go outside, full scale, where is east and where is west? Sun to nikal gaya. That means it has a meaning. The deities who are the Dikpalas, they did not have the domain beyond that. वहाँ जा ही नहीं पाते वो लोग. They are earthbound deities. But Shiva can be there. And a higher form, where he has gone beyond even the. So these directions, time is a mental construct, right? The sun is coming up. Remove all clocks, remove everything, go to a place where no internet. What will you know when is Monday and when is Tuesday? After some days, if you don't keep track, it's a way of counting.
Love how you put it. What will you know if it's Monday or Tuesday?
How will you know? That's what. I think about these things sometimes. Put me somewhere in a place where there is no way to know which day. And I being lazy, I'm sure that I will not keep track. After 10-15 days, every day is Sunday. So you have seen in the fields, in rural areas, cows tied to one peg. And that cow keeps rotating here and there. You might have seen that scene. Everybody's seen that scene. So these things, time and space, are pegs which you tie your mind so that you don't go crazy for. That you make you make sense of what is happening around you.
Datta Bauni was the name of the chant I was talking about that my mum would sing to us to put us to sleep. And I would like to believe that it was quite cosmic in terms of it would push not your body, but definitely your mind into another realm. And you'd probably gain sleep out of that realm. Again, this is not me marketing level, but there are sleep meditations where I've used the same concept. Like I've done a whole lying down meditation where I've made the user visualize that they're floating in a cloud, which finally makes its way to the moon. Because I've read so many spiritual books over the last 9 years in order to fuel the content for the show that I know that there is some spiritual significance of both the sun and the moon, and from a larger context, space in general. There's something up there that is supposed to teach us something about our reality. I don't know what Tantra says specifically about the moon, but is that a subject you've explored?
No, not specifically, not just Tantra. So moon and sun have their own significance when you look at it from the Jyotish point of view, which is allied to Tantra and not just Tantra, in the normal, the Vedic and the Puranic Upasana Paddhatis also. Because Jyotish is finally the eye that gives you an insight, which is remarkable in my opinion. So the moon is the representative of all emotions. Moon is the representative of the mind. Moon is representative of the mother. Okay. So these things are important. Moon is the representative of Devi. So this, because the moon has its own phases from the Pratipada to the Amavasya and then Purnima, etc., all the phases that it goes through. Accordingly, there are Nitya Devis, there are accompanying goddesses of the main deities depending on the phases of the moon, like that. Moon is extremely crucial because your mind is extremely crucial. If your mind is your friend, then you can do a lot of things. If your mind is not agreeing with what you're trying to do, what lifestyle you're leading or what work you're doing, etc., then it is obviously going to hamper your spiritual practice and hamper everything.
You're seeing this all from a Jyotish perspective.
But this is important even in the sadhana perspective. As in, so when I suppose I'm guiding somebody into some spiritual practice, it not only is important to tell them that what to do, but sometimes there will be blockages, karmic blockages in the chart of the individual, which we can find out from looking at the imprint at the moment of birth, the horoscope, if it is looked at. And those need to be cleared in order for the individual to progress smoothly. That is important. So there, the moon plays a vital role. What kind of the mind, in fact, there are certain combinations, I won't mention them, but there are certain combinations of the moon, certain placements of certain grahas connected to the moon, which I've seen help people to do Bhairav Upasana very fast. So I have a general idea can come in. that, whether this particular deity will gel with an individual or not. So all grahas play a role. Moon plays a very vital role. That's what calming effect of the moon calms your mind. You feel more relaxed, you feel more happy, you feel more energized. Okay, that's extremely important. And the sun is also important in terms of, one is obviously the sun is important in terms of a source of light, and also as a primary orientation of the Vedic religion is with respect to the sun, somehow or the other. Okay, the solar power and the solar light and the energies connected to that are very crucial in some senses for development of an individual in the Vedic path. Sun also represents at some level the Atma of an individual at a very deep level. So the Atma is all pervading. It is everywhere and all times it's working. But till the time you are not aware of it, it's as good as not there working for you. So it's very important to understand this. So this differentiates between what is the theoretical perspective and the practical reality of the universe. In theory, for example, there are many people who may believe that I am the Atma. They will tell also. There's a very the popular Upanishadic sayings and all that. But the point is, if you have not experienced the Atma, if you're not living in the Atma, these are all statements that have no meaning. Okay. So you start being truthful to the reality that you are in, not to an imagined reality that you are not in. Sun is either your Atma or your ego.
Fair. We speak a lot about Shani Dev.
Yes.
And that is a segment I wish to break down with you in this episode itself.
Okay.
But before that, I'm going to ask you about the other cosmic deities, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Surya Dev, for example. Perhaps I would argue is a deity that is quieter now than it was in the past in Sanatan Dharma.
Yeah. So multiple factors come into play. Not only the will of the deity, but there is also the karma of the people. Just like an individual has a karmic imprint, a nation, a race of people may have a karmic imprint. So at one point we had the Surya, the sampradayas, which were solar worshipping sampradayas in India, but all that is almost gone now. Hardly anything is left. Though a little bit of sun worship, actually Surya Argha and all that still goes on at an individual level. It is not very organized. Neither is it the primary sort of form of upasana that is there at this moment. So it can be a combination of multiple factors. One is that maybe the deity wills it to go backwards in terms of sort of the influence it spreads at the moment or at a particular moment in time. And also it could be additionally certain events that have caused, so there is also both this is happening anyway. So there is a set of events that is happening, which destruction of the sun temples and all that and things like that. One that happened, the famous temples we had, I think in Pakistan, there was a very famous sun temple which was destroyed, and other places, or Kashmir perhaps.
This is in the medieval age?
Yeah, okay. By invaders. Okay. So the question comes in that yes, why did it not revive with that same vigor again after that? Okay, because temples of Shiva were also destroyed, temples of other deities were destroyed, but more or less Shiva Upasana continues, right? Even if in spite of destruction continues. So sometimes it's possible either the deity may withdraw, or also there may be other factors like the karma of the people do not allow worship of this deity after a point for some period of time. So there are multiple things that are possible.
Okay. Lots of tangential questions. The only sun temple I've heard of now is the Konark Sun Temple.
Yeah, so that's kind of in a dilapidated condition. Yeah. So there was one in, I think Pakistan or somewhere there used to be a very famous sun temple that was destroyed.
Is there tantric practices with the sun?
I don't know if there were any specific practices, but worship of sun, solar deity, brings about certain things. For example, it brings a lot of fame. And the sun temple of Multan, exactly. So this was
that's its state right now.
Yeah.
It barely even looks like a temple anymore.
No, it's nothing. It's just broken structure.
Is it wrong for us to say that?
No.
I'm not being insulting towards
whom?
It doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist. It's been destroyed by the invaders long back.
Why does Kamdev, the god of lust, because karma is lust?
In a way.
Some people the god of pleasures. Why does it exist in Sanatan Dharma in the first place?
Why not? That's such a powerful force. In fact, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, there are the 4 goals that are put for life. So Kama is already included among the objectives of life. It's not even something you don't look at it, not like that. So it's there. So there's a deity.
That represents that feeling, that thought.
Yes. And in fact, there is this famous story, he was burned by Shiva. And then he was rejuvenated, but without a body.
Right.
Okay. So basically that means that it's more of at the level of thoughts. So lust or desire comes at the level of thoughts, not necessarily in the sense of a physical presence or something. It's in the realm of thoughts that it happens. So which means that even brahmacharya is to be maintained at the realm of thoughts first.
Does it also mean that Shiva can contain your lust completely?
Yes, he can. The higher forms definitely can. There's no question about it.
Because the morals of all these stories are actually guidelines for modern day upasaks.
Yes, but not as simple guidelines as you think. There is more complicated guidelines also involved in this. I mean, it is not always a guideline. It is more of sometimes the spiritual reality is being told in the form of a story.
What do you mean spiritual reality?
That last is not is without a body. That means that it is actually a thought that comes in. So which means that if somebody says that I want to maintain brahmacharya, then your brahmacharya starts at the level of thought. If you're not able to control your thought and if you are just maintaining physical brahmacharya, just a matter of time it's going to break.
Why do Kamdev mantras exist in the first place?
There are mantras exist to kill people also. Kamdev is a very good thing to have.
But what would that mantra's effect be effectively?
To bring about to, not only to experience, those mantras can be used in order for, increasing an environment where you have more opportunities for experiencing pleasure. Somebody wants, to have an experience or something like that, I'm assuming, those who have done Kamdeva mantras.
Are you able to look at a mantra and break down the meaning a little bit?
Sometimes, but it's not a process that should be done if it's a Vija mantra in public. Because it's only for specific people.
Back when I was trying to deep dive into why Kamdev mantras exist, I came across this word called sammohan. What is the meaning of sammohan?
Infatuation.
Okay.
Attachment.
Like a crush on someone.
Yes. To bring about some degree of desire and attachment on somebody else for you or for the person who is doing the sadhana or the mantra.
And there must be some kind of ritual which involves...
No, it depends. It can be ritual. It can be just mantra japa also.
As in you just do the same japa of the Kamdev mantra.
Not Kamdev mantra. Sammohan can be done through many mantras of many deities.
Okay. So but what is the side effect? Side
effect means in what sense?
Is there a side effect?
Yeah, if somebody gets attached to you, फिर normal side effect जो है वो तो होगा. So there is a second and third order effect of that is everything that you think about. Like, the mantra is not going to determine that for you.
Like a love story will begin. Perhaps.
Maybe not also. You may end up somebody I know tried this once on something. Uske baad he started regretting because the other person was like, it becomes that it can end up into that kind of a stalking syndrome or something beyond your control.
Damn. All this exists.
Everything exists.
This is the closest to what the West terms as spells.
Spells are a bit like mantras, but our mantras are a shastra, so it's more complicated than normal spells.
That same book I was talking about in the last episode, where I bought a book on witchcraft to understand it, and this was after our episode, because I just figured that Tantra is actually a global phenomenon, and we talk about it from a Shastra perspective, but other cultures talk about it in their own ways, like Celtic culture, whatever, South American culture, shamanism, they have their own versions of rituals and yantras. There are spells in European witchcraft which are somewhat like Sammohan, where it actually involves crystals. You're supposed to take certain colored crystals, certain kind of flowers, keep the person's photo on a particular night where the phase of the moon is in a particular way. Like it's very connected to the moon, and then chant upon that. And they've given those chants are in English. It's not even Latin or any ancient language. But I think it's much more about having yantras like those objects and then putting emotions into it.
Right.
So I think the raw idea is the same as what you're talking about when it comes to Sammohan. I mean, largely when you're talking about Shastra-based Tantra. But it's just that because Sanatan Dharma has evolved in this land that we call the subcontinent, which was so populated for such a long period of time, that ours is way more refined and developed. Theirs is perhaps a little more raw.
Raw would not be the right word to use. I would say, it's our... so in these or other prayogas, when applications of mantras, what we have is much more vaster. Wide range of mantras are available for all things. Deities, mantras, processes. So what kind of these things are, to what degree you want to apply it to somebody. One is a mild infatuation. One is you make somebody so crazy that they can't think beyond you. All this is possible. But there is a caveat to this also. The understanding of this has to be very clear. So it depends on whom you're trying to do it on. It's not that simple. Nature is not that stupid. Just because there are mantras, so you sit and do it will happen. No. If the person has protection, if the person is spiritually grounded, if the person has his or her own mantra practice and all that, then obviously these spells and all that smaller things, they will not work so easily.
For example, Bhairav is a protective deity. So if you're doing Om Bhairavaya Nama for a long time, it's kind of like wearing an armor.
Right. And there are then, apart from that, if person does kavacha recitations, kavachas are specific armors. Since you mentioned the term, every deity has a set of kavachas. These are stotras which are protective in nature. So when kavachas are done, recitations are done, then it brings about a protective aura, and it's not that simple. Depending on what kavacha is done and how intensely the individual is practicing that, it's not so easy to influence through mantras and other processes. Then there are other, just like that, there are protective measures higher and higher. There are applications also higher and higher.
Weapons that are stronger and armor that's stronger.
Sometimes people may use objects that you have used. Then it becomes very strong.
That this is what Kala Jadoo is, black magic.
In a way. So Kala Jadoo is, well, basically just a negative application of mantra and ritual and anything. The intent is the point. The ritual itself is neither good nor bad. Tantra is giving you the processes that it is. It's your intent that will make it good or bad. How are you going to use that? Suppose in a very theoretical situation, you are some important individual in the government, suppose, and the country goes into war with somebody else. Suppose you have a great expertise in this knowledge. You do this kind of a ritual on some important individual of the other camp and find out some information from that. Is it good or bad? Who knows?
So does this happen?
I don't know. I'm just giving you a theoretical situation.
Fair. This is the practical use of prayog.
Prayog is always practical. There's nothing called theoretical prayog. So a theoretical prayog naam ka koi cheez nahi hota. Either you can do it or you cannot do it. That's it. There is no about I know this, I know that, I know that. Power by itself is application. If you have not applied power, you don't know whether you have power or not. All that is, rest is all theory. I know X, Y, Z. I can write 10 pages, 20 pages, 100 books. Meaningless. Power is application.
I think in one of our earliest podcasts, we had spoken about this loosely. We had spoken about Kala Jadoo, like 1.5 years ago when we first met. Because that whole phase was like this. And now we're talking about it in a much more objective way rather than a explosive cinematic way. When I've traveled in Australia, I met a lot of Aboriginal people, like the local original inhabitants of Australia. And 100% certainly, I'm sure about this, they feel a connection with India. They do believe that there's some kind of brotherhood between the cultures. Sisterhood, brotherhood, whatever you want to call it. And you know what? There's also prayog in their culture. There is rituals, there is mantra jap, there is yantras, there is prayog. You can use certain combinations to have an effect on reality.
Yes.
Aboriginal people were very connected to their tribal roots, which is very good from a mental health perspective, perhaps, because usually people who live in tribal communities are said to be happier. Based on the few tribal communities that exist even today, that's supposed to be the gift of having tribal living. The downside is that you can't defend yourself against the modern world and modern technology. For example, you're still using swords, shields, spears, and then someone can shoot you. Perhaps it can pierce your shield. And that's exactly what happened in Aboriginal Australia 200, 300 years ago, and it wiped out the whole civilization. And there's still a lot of generational trauma associated with that wipeout. The thing is, I do believe there's a very soft and slow wiping out of tribal culture happening in the subcontinent as well. Gradually it's happening. But tribes have existed everywhere, including Mumbai. Like even if you go to the RA forest now, I think there are some tribes which were the original inhabitants of RA forest. But that's as far as it gets in urban metros. But because I'm talking to Rajarshi Nandy, the reason I'm summarizing all this about tribal living is for the sake of talking about tantric origins. Now again, if we take a step back even from Shastra, we've evolved from Stone Age man. Like at one point we were cavemen. At some point we evolved and became hunter-gatherers. That's how we migrated. Would you disagree with this?
No.
I think it was during this phase of being hunter-gatherers that the human mind started thinking about what is God. And then that kind of inquiry led to prayer, places of worship, meditation.
Possible.
And prayog and tantra. And I say that because even now, not all tribal communities, but many tribal communities are associated with prayog. Or for lack of better words, black magic, Kala Jadoo. I would actually term all these things using an analogy from our playground analogy that Bhulok, our earth, is a playground with many children, many souls. Everyone's doing their own things, stockbrokers, business people, police officers, you name it, whatever. But if you know certain secrets of the playground, you're able to manipulate reality just a little bit. And that's effectively what prayog is. Like you see a kid that you want to affect that other kid. If you know how to manipulate the fabric of reality, perhaps you can do it. And this is what I think tribal societies discovered way back. And that's what evolved into the Sanatan Dharma that we know today. It got more and more refined over, I would argue, lakhs of years. Now the question I'm asking you is very specifically about Indian tribes. I don't know if you've had interactions.
Not much. But tell me, go ahead.
And the Northeast in general.
Very less interactions, almost none for that matter. But yeah, that is there. But before that, so what is a prayoga? It's an application. So you pray before your exam that I passed in this exam had good marks. That's also an application. You get the good marks. Everything in the world is prayoga. Everything. The whole purpose why people came into religion in some way or the other is you have to affect reality.
Altering the fabric of reality.
Yeah. Your reality at least. Some or the other.
Yes.
And then in that, if you come with a negative intent that you want to harm somebody, harm without... So this is... we have to look at it in the context. So unfairly harm somebody and you use various techniques to do that, then that is going to cause, obviously, that is what is generally termed as sort of black magic. But the point is, these things can be done. It's there in not just tribal religion, it's there in all religions.
Yeah.
Every religion has it. There's not a single religion that does not have it, and both the good and the bad aspects, by the way. It's not just the bad. Okay, so when we are saying that applying something, there is a good aspect to it also. There are many good aspects of applications. That is what is when a Jyotish chart is being read and there is something, some dosha, some error is there, some needs to be done. So they recommend to you certain pujas to do or certain activities to do. That is also some kind of an application of power to change your reality.
The fact is, when you combine certain mantras with certain yantras and then certain practices, there's a release of energy, and it's about what you do with that energy.
Yeah, and there you have to know exactly. So there the expertise in knowing lies in knowing that which exact deity, which exact mantra, what exact process, whether it's a homa to be done, whether it's something else to be done. That is where the expertise lies. Everything is there. The kitchen is there with all the materials. Whether you can make something fruitful or tasty out of that, that's where the capacity and competency of the individual lies.
Can you meditate to a point where you become as powerful as the Devta, or you'll never actually reach that level of power?
No, fully you cannot reach.
Fully it's out
in human body you cannot reach. Your body is a limitation. Your body will break down. If you contact with the deity, if Kal Bhairava comes, suppose, fully, not even Kal Bhairava, let's say Krishna comes, okay, fully, and you say that you are 100% going to turn into Krishna in its full capacity and power, you will most likely die before that. Your body simply doesn't have the capacity to take that power.
Once on one of our past podcasts, you had mentioned the stages beyond Nirvana. It was in the works of Sri Aurobindo. How deep have you gone into that subject?
Let's talk generic.
Okay.
Let's talk generic. But yes, these are definitely there. There's no question about it. It's once you experience them, if somebody experiences them. But this is not for everybody.
Okay. Just so that the understanding is clear, when you're growing up in India and you're studying Sanatan Dharma or studying yoga or even studying Buddhism or Jainism, you're always taught from the Sattvic perspective that the goal of all our Indic religions is to reach the point of Nirvana or Moksha. In my eyes, that is an exit ticket from the playground that we've been speaking about.
Right.
And this playground that we're in contains suffering, even if you choose the life of a monk.
Right. Suffer you will have to. That's the given.
This is that exit ticket. This is basically the ticket that everyone is internally dying for, but possibly even doesn't know yet. Fair?
Fair. Largely fair.
But there are possibly stages of evolution, like checkpoints beyond Nirvana.
Yes.
And that happens in higher realms, a more important playground.
And for very special souls.
Not for everyone.
No.
So for an average person who keeps meditating, keeps doing upasana over many lifetimes and actually earns that exit out.
So what is your goal? You want to exit, so that becomes your goal.
From Bhulok.
Or the general idea of Nirvana is complete cessation of your existence. Which means that not only the suffering goes, the joys will also go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, aisa nahi ki I won't have the suffering, but I'll have the enjoyment. No. Enjoyment and suffering both come side by side. So you will finally be into, I don't know, whatever that zone is. So basically you're completely out of the system. So therefore these things which we identify as a human life, things like that, none of this will be there anymore.
That sounds nice.
Who knows? Maybe it's nice.
It's just indescribable in words.
Perhaps.
Because truly, what is joy also in the first?
And the descriptions are all will be more verbal than actually real, in my opinion. So there's a limitation of words. After some point, words are not sufficient. How can you describe something that you have not experienced? If you have never seen an apple, you can use 10-page essays and all, still can't describe it properly. Exactly what it is. How does it taste?
Neti.
Neti to yahan tak chalega. Wo bhi nahi chalega. At that stage, it is like it's beyond. But instead of exiting from there, how about you transform yourself through upasana and become like a reflection of the deity?
What do you think that truly means? What will happen to your reality? Like there's consciousness in your eyes and your mind looking at me. There's consciousness in me looking at you. You go down your path, you're a Kamakya Devi Upasak, I'm a Bhairav Upasak. Suppose I advance, suppose you advance. And hypothetically speaking, we both cross Nirvana. And then you're saying that you go even further and you become a reflection of the deity. What are you seeing from your consciousness? What am I seeing from my consciousness?
So first of all, when the idea is given that somebody has gone beyond even the state that is known as Nirvana, so you that is cannot be done by your free will. Some higher power has to will that this particular soul has to experience this. So then only it is possible that they will enter into the absolute state of Nirvana and then may again come back into the human consciousness, but in a completely transformed manner. Okay, absolutely transformed. Now this transformation, and when I speak that somebody is going to become like a deity upasaka in the highest level, so your perspective will change and will become at a very high state. You will see the whole world as a reflection of the deity. But here there will be a difference. Suppose you are a Bhairava Upasaka, you see the world as a reflection of the Bhairava consciousness. Somebody is a Krishna Upasaka, will see the world as a reflection of Krishna's consciousness. And there will be differences in the two also. If there was no differences, everything would have been one. Obviously, there will be some slight differences, and that is dependent on the nature of the deity. So if you are a Shiva Upasaka and you enter that state, so you will see that very formidable static nature of the consciousness that is there, that comes in, which for lack of better words, we say the static self-realization, self with a capital S. So you will see that is the substratum of whole world, everything's. That's one beautiful thing. Suppose you are a Ma Durga Upasaka and you reach that state. So there is the iconography of Durga has that battle. So you will see that even from the smallest cell to the largest star, there's a friction going on. And it is through this friction everything has been created. And there is an Advaitam in that. There's a beauty in that. Every moment there's a friction going on. If you're a Krishna Upasaka, you may see that everything is an expansion of a divine love. If you're a Kali Upasaka, you may see that there is, deep down, there is a absolute, for lack of better words, tremendously powerful force that cannot be contained by anything. She's like that. But that is also the source from which everything is being born. So there is an individualistic state of expansion of the consciousness of that deity that you will experience. And as you go deeper into that, this is not a one-stop thing. As you go deeper, eventually manifesting within your body and mind and your life, you will have various attributes of the deity. That is the very high state. Those who become absolute siddhas of the devata, they may have around them always the environment will change like that, according to the nature of the deity. Their words will become different. So they are effectively in the human form, but they're absolutely the deity.
There are people like that already.
I'm sure. Of course there are.
Perhaps not in the public eye.
No, they won't come in the public eye. No, that they won't. That is pretty certain they won't.
Is this point achievable in one lifetime through hard work?
Obviously not. If you're starting from zero, you can't go there in one lifetime.
How do you know that you're not starting from zero?
That is the question. So that you have to be very careful in. Suppose you already have an interest in these things and you're doing sadhana, etc. So then you can understand that perhaps you might have done these things in the past. And the rate in which you progress, signs you get and all that.
I'm saying this from a very objective, non-emotional perspective. Of course, I'm proud of being an Indian. I'm very blessed that I feel my soul was meant to be born as a Hindu and experience all these things. But maybe anyone that's born in a Hindu family, and that too a religious Hindu family, is perhaps already meant to be on this path or has done something in the past that has put them?
Not always.
Okay.
Not always. So there are two things. One is the religious family and one is a spiritually oriented religious family. There are two differences in the two.
Not just a blindly ritualistic.
So not blindly ritualistic, no. Rituals are important, but through the rituals you have to have that sense of adhyatma.
Transformation.
Yes, and you have to believe that there is a sense of. There are many good ritualists I know who have the sense of adhyatma, and then there are ritualists who are just blindly doing something like textbook copy paste and all that. They're not interested in anything more than that. Okay.
Do you think that the textbook copy pasting also benefits you?
It benefits. It is creating something in a small manner. It helps. It's like that. So these things are there. It is like there was one very interesting incident in the life of in the I think the diaries of Shyamacharan Lahiri, who was the Kriya Yoga founder. So there was one incident I'd read where some Pandit in Varanasi, very scholarly man and all that, wanted to take Kriya initiation, and he had read a lot of scriptures. He used to come and then keep telling him this scripture means that and this writing is there and that paragraph means that. So he used to very enjoy explaining Sanskrit verses, and Lahiri Masha used to very calmly listen to all that. And a housewife who lived close by one day came and asked that I also want to take initiation. After a few days, a good tithi came and he told that housewife that you come with 5 fruits, and he gave her I think some money and said that day you come and give me this money. Okay, I'll give the initiation. To this gentleman, he didn't say anything. And people were like, "Arey, you're not giving him Diksha, he's such a learned man," and all that. No, Lahiri Mahasaya was a very elevated yogi. He's not ordinary. So he said that, he just calmly said that he has entered into this field for the first lifetime. First lifetime, what happens is you want to show off, I know so much, I know this scripture, I know this language, that language. She said this lady has been practicing for 3 lifetimes. The moment she starts Kriya, her experiences will just open up.
Okay. Very dry question for you. What's the gift of being born as a Sanatani?
You have been born into a culture that is the most sophisticated spiritual culture ever seen on planet Earth. I have not found anything in any religion, not the specifics, but the fundamental idea, the core philosophical idea, the practice or the application, that is not already somewhere or the other, in some form or the other, present within Sanatana Dharma. And the vastness of the processes, the methods, the philosophies, it's like a library. It's the most comprehensive design that has ever come up.
What do you think is the downside?
Downside is not in Sanatana Dharma. Downside is in the practitioners of Sanatana Dharma. I feel that's a different topic altogether, but I had spoken about it somewhere else, I think. I felt that from 1947, after the independence, till at least 1980s, or maybe even middle 80s and all that, Hindu society, by default, relegated religion to the sideways, and dharma and practices and all that, and became more materialistic, perhaps in the understanding that somehow that is the fulfillment of life and ye to chalta rahega. And that was a very wrong step to do, and whose repercussions is already affecting India in various places. And thankfully, there is a new generation which is much more interested in these things now that is coming up, which was clearly not there even 20, 30 years ago. 20 years ago, if you spoke about religion in an average town or something, I'm saying, in an urban setting, so you'll be looked at, people will be more suspicious of you.
Yeah. I remember writing an Om on top of my exam papers, and I got into trouble for that in school. I got made fun of. But in retrospect, at age 30, I don't see a problem with that. I wasn't trying to demean any other religion by doing that. It was just for myself. It was probably some sort of self-confidence inflicting thing.
Yeah.
Just before an exam, you write as an Om. I remember being made fun of so much. I remember being made fun of for praying once after a car accident. It bothered me a little bit then, not because it hurt my ego, because I questioned the reality of the guys making fun of me in terms of, do you not believe in this? Do you not see the greatness of God? I think as life went forward, some of them still make fun of me, but most of them have wrapped their head around the thought of God, or perhaps even the thought of Sanatana. I do believe that Gen Zs are way more spiritually open than people my age.
Yes, correct. That I've seen.
All over India, I'm talking about. We see that on social media, and data tells us the same. I used to be scared of creating spiritual/religious content in 2016. Now when I create it, I know that it's going to explode on the internet. But it was created with the same intention. It's just that the times and the deities are possibly allowing it more. I don't have any more questions today. Is there anything you want to bring up? Because we spoke about a lot of different topics.
No, not specifically, except that I think it's good that there is a lot of people who are doing the simple Bhairava mantra, and it's going to increase and it's going to cause a strong impact among people in coming times.
I have one more question.
Yes.
This popped in mind. This is possibly the last segment of this episode. 2024, we did a spectacular Numerology 101 episode with Sanjay Bijumani.
Okay.
That episode had gone hyper viral. Happened last year. I remember him saying something about 2024 adding up to 8. I know that numerology is a bit of an extension of Jyotisha. Is there power in numerology?
I'm sure there is.
Numbers do determine the fabric of reality in some ways.
Indicative of reality.
Okay. I've read this repeatedly in articles, newspapers, lots of astrologers talk about this. That they say that 2024 is the year of Shani because it adds up to 8. Do you have anything to say about this?
No, not like that, because that's too generic. Okay. So generic in the sense, when an individual is under the influence of a specific graha, the best way to go about it is to look at the individual horoscope and determine. So these things that come in, so even in the astrology columns in newspapers and all that, those are actually very generic, and those are not even useful to that extent, in my opinion. I mean, people love reading it, which is a different matter altogether. But so it's not like that. So there is a method of determining when traditionally done. So at the time when the new year is forming, and that means not necessarily 31st December New Year, the Hindu calendar New Year is forming. At the time, there is the configuration of grahas and all that can give you some indication. Overall, what is the year going to be like? But even more accurate is, if you're looking at, suppose, somebody is looking at India for a matter. So you can look at the grahas, that how it will play out in the chart for India and how it is going to happen for an individual based on his chart. But yeah, perhaps this year there will be, let's see, some kind of events. Some things may happen which are not the most, which are tough, let's say.
For the world?
I don't know about the world. India, it's possible.
It's a tough year for India.
It's possible.
Okay. Would you like to say anything about Shani Dev?
No, it's fantastic. If you're worshipping Kal Bhairava, somehow some of the problems that Shani Dev can cause is also brought under control.
Shani Dev can cause problems?
Yes. If Shani Dev is not well placed in your horoscope, definitely can cause problems. And there are methods to deal with it. So it's not that always it is bad. Sometimes in some configurations, it can be very good also for the individual. So that depends on the individual chart. So there is no one thumb rule that works for everybody. For some people, Saturn may be the Shani Dev, may be the graha that can bring them up from a very ordinary level to an extraordinary level.
In what way?
Anything, in career, in life.
In spiritual growth?
Spiritual growth, some types of spiritual growth. So Saturn is basically a graha of discipline and hard work. If you're not working hard, he doesn't bless you. That's extremely important. But when he is slightly negative, then you'll face criticisms in spite of working hard. In spite of trying, you'll still be criticized strongly.
Sounds familiar. Everyone knows two terms from Jyotisha nowadays. One Sadesati and the second is Shani Mahadasha. These two terms have become highly popularized lately because of negative connotations, honestly. Would you like to expand on both these thoughts?
So Sadesati is the 7.5 years is the phase that it takes for Saturn to pass near your moon. So when that happens, it can cause some sort of a difficulty in your life, and the specificity of the difficulty will again be determined by the nature of your horoscope and the grahas close by, and which is the Saraswati number, whether it's the first one or second one, things like that, many things. But more or less, as the generic perception is, when Saturn and Moon come together, Moon is a very emotional kind of graha and Saturn is a very dry planet, so they don't gel together too well, to put it that way. So therefore what happens is the person may suffer from anxiety or some kind of problems, or even in some cases maybe depression, or people conflicts with people. Various things are possible, but this is again a generic statement. It may not exactly happen that way. It depends on the horoscope.
Could a Sadesati be positive?
Yeah, it can be positive. I've seen cases where Saraswati had the least effect because they were running through a positive dasha at that time.
Okay. And Shani Mahadasha, which supposedly lasts for a long time.
Yes, but again, this is the same thing. So these things, it's not about being scared or anything. First, you have to understand what is the position of the graha in the horoscope. So is it good? Is it bad? If it is good, then why would you be scared of it? Then it is going to give you good blessings. There are people, famous people, who have done extremely well in Shani Mahadasha because the Saturn is well placed.
So it's too intricate a subject to just dismiss as binary.
One should not have a very generic idea about Jyotish. It is always comes down to fundamentally what is their position of the grahas in an individual's chart. Or in case somebody is doing a prashna, then that is what is the position of the grahas when the prashna is being asked. Okay, so without that, there is no one thumb rule. In fact, Jupiter can be very negative, which is otherwise considered as so positive a graha. In certain conditions, Jupiter can also produce negative results for an individual.
For example?
A lot of things, diseases, things related to blood sugar and sometimes hormonal problems, liver related issues. A lot of things can come from Jupiter. Financial issues can come from Jupiter.
Okay. First time ever hearing this.
Oh, yes. So this is what, when you go a little deeper into Jyotish, you realize that this whole thumb rule business, that this is all good and this is all bad, doesn't work. So you have to understand the nature of the graha. Nature of the graha will work, which means somebody's Saturn dasha is going on and Saturn is not in a retrogression or in some other combinations are there. Basically, it is an indication that he will have to work hard. That's again a very generic level. But which area is it going to happen? Where is it? Is it affecting your home? Is it affecting your workspace? Is it affecting your marriage or relationship? Is it affecting your health? All these things. So it depends on where exactly it is. Now, placed, number two, that gives you an idea of which area of your life it will impact. Number two, is it well placed or is it badly placed? Which means that if it is negative for your horoscope, then obviously it's going to cause you trouble. If it is positive for your horoscope, it will not cause you trouble. But there are certain tendencies that Saturn already has. For example, Saturn is a loner. Saturn doesn't like interacting with people too much. It's a little slow. It's very thorough, very hardworking. It loves the masses. Masses means the lowest denominator of masses. It's not the elite society. It's the workers and all that. It loves those things. So somehow or the other, those will come into play in their life. Hard work, though, definitely. And if it is hard work, in some conditions, as I mentioned, growth can happen. A lot of growth can happen. Huge amounts of growth. I mean, when Saturn gives you something, it will be exceptional amount.
There are tantric pujas for Shanidev.
Graha pujas are there.
Graha pujas are Jyotish related, right?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you this is I have this Ram Mandir I've been going to ever since I was a kid. It's in Vadala. It's a very, very powerful temple in my eyes. And it's an ancient temple. There's also a Hanuman temple right opposite it. I've been going there my whole life, but I went there about 3 to 4 weeks ago. And I went there a little more open, and I was going there after years, after meeting you. You know, the time I'd gone there before that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So I felt I was going there as a much more educated individual this time. And I started noticing each of the deities present outside the main temple premises. And there I saw a long line for one of the deities. When I inquired which one it was Saturday, and people were offering prasad and oil for Shanidev. And then right next to it, I saw all the Griha devs. Like there was a Rahu, Ketu.
Graha, all the deities. Navagraha.
Yeah. All this is Graha-based puja, Jyotish-based.
Not fully. So this is the Navagraha sanctums are made in all temples these days, especially in South, you'll definitely find, and in the correct direction and ways. So Grahas can be pacified in multiple ways, not just puja. Sometimes you do activities related to the Graha. That will help you.
As in it'll cure the bad
impact. For example, some days ago I was seeing somebody's some affliction was there. So I recommended that individual to do Annadanam, to feed people, okay, a large scale feeding, not small feeding, because that certain graha required that. So that type of activity, if you do related to the graha, that helps, or that is more positive oriented activity with respect to the graha, it can help remove the maleficence of the graha. This is one. Then there is the next level of graha is, you can, if the graha is really negative, then you can do a puja of the graha. And this, there are people, a lot of people, places in India where they can be done. So they will do a full mantra japa of the graha, and then they will do a homa of the graha, and they will, it's basically to calm down the graha. If that doesn't work, then you go to the deities who can control the graha. So there are two types of things. One is the standard deities are there, plus the Vishnu avatars are there. And then in some cases, when the grahas are absolutely in a very negative condition, you can go into worshipping the Mahavidyas related to the grahas. All the Dasa Mahavidyas, the 10 Mahavidyas are also linked to the grahas. So their pujas can be done in order to calm down the effect of a graha.
Okay. One last question again. The question's popping in my head, so I'm going to throw it at you.
Yeah, please.
The ritual I do every night is, can I say a bit of it at least?
Go ahead.
Light a diya, offer prasad, and do my job. And have my own personalized conversation with God. It's a very raw, rudimentary, basic, yet powerful practice.
Absolutely.
I've had experiences doing this. I get emotional. If I ever do it in a temple sometimes, like I just went to Kashmir. I found the one Shiva temple in Gulmarg. It's on the top of a hill.
Okay.
Stunning. And you're in sub-zero temperatures, minus 13 degrees, you go inside that temple and you do your job. I had such a strange experience. I just did one mala job, but I didn't feel sad or happy. I was feeling cold, finished the mala. And then the moment I opened my eyes, I realized my eyes were full of water and there was lots of water that had come on my eyes. So I questioned whether I cried or not. I don't know if I cried because I didn't feel sad or happy. I was just feeling connected and there was lots of water pouring out of my eyes, which is why I don't know if these were tears or something else. And this is the summer picture. Now imagine it in winter.
Okay.
It's at the top of this hillock. Yeah, can you see that's the winter picture?
Okay.
It's been the honor of my life to actually meditate in that mandir.
It's beautiful.
But my point of saying this is, what's the difference between this practice of this basic mala jap and then practicing a whole havan? Is it like the havan is a much more charged ritual, like even more energy gets released? Why don't more people talk about havans in the first place?
People do. Havan is an integral part of dharmic ritual practices. It has its own rules, pros and cons. In the traditional format when you're doing, so basically the idea is that you do a certain amount of mantra japa and then a part of it you give in fire. So basically you can do, so you are doing sadhana, when you're doing mantra japa, you are actually, the element that is getting activated is you're working through the air. Why mantra is because you're chanting the mantra, right? So then fire is, havan is basically, you are using Agni Tattva. Okay. Similarly, there is Tarpan. Tarpan is Jal Tattva. Marjan, Bhojan. Bhojan is actually your, basically the earth element where you're feeding people actually. So all these things are equally important. They have their own specific significances and correctly used, they make it absolutely terrific. It's important to follow the correct usage and important to follow what the guidelines that the Shastras have given for centuries in these matters. Because in my opinion, and I differ with a lot of people on this. So these days I see many places that only havan is, so more or less people, go ahead and have this idea that just by doing homas, Havan alone one can attain. But there's no evidence of that. It is even, in fact, contrary to the established norms of all traditional sampradayas, whether it's tantric or Vedic or anything. Nobody, you can go to a Shankaracharya and meet him and ask him, can I do Havan on and off? No, you'll say there is a procedure, there is a method, there is amount of japa of the deity, etc. Then you do, because it's a very intense process. Something that is very intense has to be controlled and coordinated in the right manner, and then it becomes useful. Or one leaves society completely, becomes a sadhu. Some sadhu sampradayas, not the Vedantic sampradayas. Vedantic sampradayas, they give up fire rituals also. In certain other sadhu sampradayas in North specifically, after many years of sadhana, the guru may allow you to keep something known as dhuni. Dhuni is a 24/7 fire. Okay, and it is extremely potent. But remember, it is not for a householder, it is not for any other average person, it is for somebody who has the capacity to handle it. Fire is very powerful. Extremely potent method of upasana is fire. Because when a thing is extremely powerful, you use it with the right reverence, right manner, right quantity. This whole thing is very important. Japa is important, fire is important, tarpana is important, certain deities are there. Ganpati, for example, if you have a diksha of proper traditional way of diksha, one of the best things to do is tarpan to Ganpati.
What is tarpan?
Tarpan is just like you do tarpan to Pitrus. Tarpan means, it comes from the word which means to satisfy. You feel satisfied. So you're doing tarpana to your ancestors with water and black til and all that somebody does, etc., and saying that be satisfied. Tarpana is to be done for deities also. Devatas also. You say the mantra of the deity will be there, and then there's a phrase that has to be added with tells them that okay, I'm doing tarpana to the deity and puja to the deity, etc. Certain count of tarpanas have to be done. It produces remarkable results. Tarpana to some deities are very, very powerful. And in the Kola tantric mark, since we're talking of that, tarpana is to be done using alcohol. So you give karan to the devata and you use the phrase and say that I'm doing your tarpana, you be satisfied with it. So these are very powerful processes. It's not just only one thing is there. The greatest upasak is one whose mind has become so tuned. So he knows what exactly is needed of this. You don't do blindly everything. What is to be done when a havan is needed, then you do a havan. But there are some procedures before that. There is certain amount of japa that has to be done, certain amount of tuning with the mantra. If that is not there, if you keep blindly doing homa, it will not lead to any you can claim various things. Claim is irrelevant, I tell you. What you claim makes no sense. It is what the world will claim or see, that is what. So traditional idea is more or less, you do you graduate to doing homas in a controlled manner after you have first completed japa and all that. In fact, japa is so important that japa is the only thing that can take you if you are capable into the Akash Tattva, which is the most powerful of all the tattvas. Akash Tattva, entering into the state of the Akash Tattva is not possible while doing homas or tarpana or other things.
When you say entering the state of Akash Tattva, do you mean astral travel?
No. It's a change in your consciousness. During japa it is possible. Not always, those who can do it. Yes, if somebody is that elevated, that he's 24/7 in that state of the Akash Tattva, then whatever activity he does, whether he's doing a homa or whether he's cooking something, he's in that state. That's extremely rare. The reason why japa is so important is only during intense japa only, and japa could be nama japa, mantra japa, whatever you're doing. For days and days and days, you can enter into a state of the Akash Tattva. In the state of Akash Tattva only, you understand the true potency of the mantra of the Devata. Akasha is very vast. It is present everywhere and it is nowhere. It is the subtlest of the elements. Other elements have some wind, you can feel the wind, right? Fire, you can see the fire. Water, you can feel the fire thing. Earth is stable like that. Akasha is none of these, and yet it is more powerful than all of these.
Ether.
For lack of better words. Only when your japa enters into that state, your meditation enters into that tattva, is connected to that, then you start having the actual experiences of the deity. It is without the Akash Tattva, you are still at the struggler level.
Okay. There's a lot of people who gained from your Bhairav sadhana explanatory video.
Right.
But effectively you said Om Bhairavaya Namah is the starting mantra.
Yes.
Do the mala jap. Know how to use your fingers correctly. There is a method that you're supposed to use your middle finger to actually move the mala. And you use your thumb to keep it stable and balance it on your ring finger. Hold it near your heart chakra.
It produces fast results.
But you can actually hold it.
Yes.
Okay. And try constantly visualizing that the mantra / the deity is being imprinted into your heart area.
Yes.
This is the base level beginning of the Bhairav sadhana. Just ensure you have the right kind of mala.
Right. Rudraksh mala is fine.
Okay. Can I ask you some of my own Q&As, FAQs related to this? I try doing it in front of my fire, in front of my altar. But obviously that's not possible all the time. If I'm traveling, if I'm in a flight, sometimes I'll do it on the flight. But I try visualizing at least that there's a flame in front of me. Of course, my mind wanders while I'm doing the job, but I try bringing it back to Bhairav. And I try doing a certain number of malas every day. I began slowly and then I've worked my way up. What do you think of 5 malas a day?
It's fine. It's good enough. Starting stages, carry on that. So basically, what I tell is that whatever you're doing, even one mala also, keep doing it. On Ashtami Tithis, do more.
Okay.
So keep a track of the Ashtami Tithis. Yourself find a way to find when is the Ashtami. You can find it online easily, it's available. Krishna Paksha Ashtami Tithi specifically. Once a month it will come. So whenever that Tithi comes, before that, 1-2 days before that, mentally prepare yourself. That day do more japa as far as you can. Some people do lot, 40-50 malas also they do. Okay, some people will do 100 malas also of this. It will take 2-3 hours, 100 malas. But it's up to the individual. It's not necessary that you have to do that. Say you're doing 2 malas or 3 malas daily. On Ashtami you do say 11 malas or 12 malas or 10 malas, something like that.
Does the speed of chanting matter?
If you're doing large number of counts, then obviously you have to do it at a faster pace.
Om Bhairavaaya Namah, Om Bhairavaaya Namah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So certain moments in the sadhana will make me do it slowly.
Yes.
I'll want to do it out of the pleasure of doing it slowly.
Mm-hmm.
So I just listen into that intuition.
Yeah. So there are 2 things about this. Now, the way that you are doing at this moment, that is fine. Slow down. No issues. Sometimes people do mantra anushtan, which is a more complicated process, slightly more complicated process, where you take a sankalpa at the beginning that I will do so many amount of malas in so many days. There you have to keep the count as primary. Even if you are feeling like slowing down, you have to ensure that you are finishing the count. So there, if you can balance that too, very good. If you're not doing an anushtan, if you're just doing say 3 malas or 5 malas I'm doing daily or 2 malas, whatever it is, and in between, once the mantra connects to your chit shakti, there's a power inside you. Once there's a connection that happens, at that time the mantra will slow down, mind will slow down, you will start enjoying the process. So there you can slow down, but continue the mantra. Then the japa becomes like a meditation.
Yeah, happens.
And that is a very good sign.
You had asked me to keep a track of the numbers, so I maintain a note, and I'm waiting for the point where I reach 1,000 malas.
Right.
Why did you?
Because 1,000 is considered as a generic number. When you complete 9, 27 or 26 malas, that is as good as 1 lakh japa of the mantra. Plus, there's an additional say another 70, 80 malas. That kind of covers any kind of lapses that might have happened in the japa. So 1,000 is considered as like a
safe number
as a parameter to cross. Okay.
What after that?
After that, you intensify. So it is not that you'd have to change the mantra. Even with this only, now you do more intensified japa. You can increase the count of the japa, or you can start doing smaller anushtans. So you see that 1,000 mantra japa may have taken you 3 months, 4 months, whatever. Now you say, no, let's do something more intense thing. Say, I want to complete 200 malas in 5 days. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Or 6 days or 7 days, something like this.
Like you create games for yourself.
Yes, you intensify that. And that will have stronger effects.
And what do you mean by effects?
Effects means the effect of the sadhana.
Which is what?
Which could be many things. You could have deeper experiences. You could have a more conscious engagement with the deity. You could have some material changes also. Many things are possible.
The goal is to keep
doing. So you there is of course a possibility of people doing higher levels of Bhairava mantras. There are many Bhairava mantras. But even with this one also, I feel, and I've seen that, not just feel, I've seen that with people. So if you carry on intensifying the sadhana, it is going to cause work in your consciousness and bring about certain changes. Okay. Positive, and help you develop faster.
So all in all, post 1,000, it's about creating those mini games for yourself.
Sort of. That's one way of putting it. But basically, these are what we call technically the anushtans. So basically, after 1,000 malas are done, you don't stop the sadhana. It's not that then you are like you have just crossed one threshold.
Do you still count after that?
Yes, count never goes. Not until you have reached that state where the mantra completely drops off and you are in a state of permanent Advaita with the deity.
Do you have a number in mind?
No, it doesn't depend on the number. It depends on what kind of karmas you are carrying, how long it will take.
How will you know when you reach that point?
Well, you will always know.
There are more potent mantras than this.
Yes.
And that will come to you from a guru.
Ideally, it should. There are restrictions on those mantras also. The japa of the mantra requires some other discipline in a way. And those mantras I recommend only for people whom I am guiding in a more personalized manner. So otherwise, but Om Bhairav. So my point is this: don't have a fascination that just because the mantra is more complicated, I'll gain something more like that. It's not necessarily true. Even the simplest mantra, if done with a lot of concentration, discipline, and for sufficient time, will produce strong effects on the individual and open the path for the individual.
When you speak about the word concentration,
yes,
I visualize an image of Kal Bhairav in my heart. And occasionally I might visualize the mantra in my heart. What else does concentration mean? other than what I've just said?
No, concentration is not the visualization part. You can visualize so many things. You can visualize a white light also. You can visualize, if you have been to Kal Bhairava temple and you have seen Kal Bhairava, you can visualize Kal Bhairava there, that Vigraha also. That is very good to visualize. Concentration means lack of deviation.
Okay, because your head will run to your problems.
And the break of concentration is an indication that there are multiple karmas still there, which breaks your concentration. The more the karmas are done with through the japa, through the practices that you're doing, as they are getting fulfilled, erased or removed from your balance, the deeper your concentration will automatically happen.
Okay. I'm a Punjabi guy. The women in my life, my mother and my sister, are my sources of inspiration in terms of, I think it runs in my blood to protect them. It's just Punjabi dude, North Indian guy nature. There are days where I'm worried about my mom and my sister, and I might do one mala for them. Is that an effective way of praying to your deity?
That's an effective way of praying to your deity.
And I don't count it in my own japa?
No, that's perfect.
That's the right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
You can even light a, so if you're, if you want to pray for somebody, to do something additional, you can light a specific diya in their name to the deity, to Kal Bhairava. Light a diya and say that whatever is your prayer, XYZ, whatever the issue is, you tell everything and then you sit and do some japa. That much definitely you can do. Whether he will listen to you or not, that is up to him. That much you can definitely do. Okay.
Is there any other FAQ you get from this zone of questions related to this basic Bhairav Upasana?
Yeah, I think also other things are about mala and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. That's it, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Fantastic episode with Rajarshi Nandy. Do you want to leave the audience with any signing off notes at all?
No, just that you carry on your mantra japa, and as you do, you will, I'm sure, progress and your path will open up. And may the blessings of Lord Bhairava be with everybody. May the blessings of Ma Kamakhya be with everybody.
Jai Bhairav Baba.
Jai Ma Kamakhya.
Jai Ma Kamakhya. Jai Mata. That was the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. You are not ready for the next 2 episodes of the series. They're entirely related to the Divine Feminine. The next episode is about Kalima. The episode after that is about the Dash Mahavidyas. Both are extremely powerful episodes. In fact, when we were recording those episodes, there was a very different energy in the studio. That's all I'm going to say right now. For people who've already consumed any of our episodes with Rajarshi Nandy, you know exactly what's coming our way. But trust me, the next 2 episodes of this series are the real meat of this whole series, in my opinion. Even though these episodes were fantastic, the next 2 are even better. But until they're released, what I will suggest to you, if you want more of Rajarshi Nandy, please go check out our mind performance app, Level Supermind. We've collaborated with Rajarshi Nandy to bring you multiple deity-related guided meditations. So you do absorb his energy and his knowledge through these podcasts. But if you really want to begin your own Tantra-related practices,